He was disappearing down, down, down into this little strange world of his that he had created. And the irony of this is a man that was promulgating and telling the world that with my technology and ideas you can get bigger and bigger and bigger, and yet he was shrinking down until finally he was hiding.
You know, it was like he tried to be bigger than life, but he just wasn't. He tried to be flustery and big and powerful, but if you looked, just stepped and observed, you could see that he had fear about everything. And finally the fear came down to dust particles, little teeny dust particles.
He had phobias about dust. He had phobias about smells. He had phobias about sounds. So he would hear sounds that weren't there. He would scream at the sound technician. And he would see things that weren't there, and he would scream at the people who were framing the shot. And he would smell smells that weren't there, and he'd have people rinse his clothing some 13 or 15 or however many times.
In 1977, while Hubbard was away making movies, the FBI caught up with the Snow White operation and raided Scientology headquarters in Los Angeles and Washington. Hubbard's wife, Mary Sue, and 8 other Scientology executives were convicted and sentenced for conspiracy and stealing government documents. Hubbard disappeared, never to be seen publicly again.
Do you believe now that your father is alive?
I personally don't believe so, but
why not?
I really don't know. That's just, as I said, a personal belief, but I think that if he is alive, he is certainly quite incompetent to handle his own affairs and is being grossly manipulated by the people around him.
People such as?
Well, in my petition we named, I believe, a 22-year-old boy with about a 9th grade education named David Miscavige, who's one of...
After living in a succession of hiding places, he ended up on this secluded ranch in the California hills. Secrecy has veiled his final years. But one man, Robert Vaughan Young, who was then a Scientology public relations officer, was later given a description of Hubbard by one of his guardians. This, and evidence from Hubbard's autopsy report, paint a sad picture.
He had grown a beard, he had grown his long hair. The nails were long, very much in the same problem as they found out with Howard Hughes, unkempt nails. Neighbors, there was a neighbor that walked in on him one day, and he had become very frightened and suddenly scurried out of the barn. He was frightened to meet people. He was terrified of meeting any new people.
On January the 24th, 1986, Ron Hubbard died. The Church of Scientology said he'd simply quit his body to continue his work elsewhere.
Him dying suddenly made him very mortal. And the last thing we could have is to have Hubbard be mortal. So a story had to be designed. And the story is that he went off to research the next level.
At 2000 hours Friday, the 24th of January, AD 36, L. Ron Hubbard discarded the body he had used in this lifetime for 74 years, 10 months, and 11 days. The body he had used to facilitate his existence in this messed universe had ceased to be useful, and in fact had become an impediment to the work he now must do outside of its confines.
And what's amazing is how the Scientologists bought this without any questioning. They bought it.
And kind of chipped fingernails.
Watch a lot of those videos.
I bet,
but he
were
literally
so
had
horrible.
he had like 4-inch nails.
Yes, I know.
Like curled.
Right. I saw
like
that.
curled.
Right.
But you know, there's one guy that's at Gold. Gary, his name was Gary Weesey, and he was like there for since. He was the guy they sent there to open up Golden Hour Productions.
Wow.
He was like the guy that bought the property.
Wow.
One of the guys. But he said that one time when they went to wherever LRH was, that he had long hair, like long, white hair.
Right.
And he was pretty big, and he had really gnarly nails and all this, and he was walking down the beach, and people thought he was Colonel Sanders. They literally thought that he was.
That's only because of the chicken that was hanging out.
No, because he looked like Colonel Sanders. He was like, dude, that dude looks like Colonel Sanders.
Like a psycho.
Yeah, like
with chipped gnarly
and
fingernails.
he was crazy too. He would always do crazy things, like, you know, just like in the middle of the day, he would get in the car and go drive into town.
Right.
And just show up.
That I heard.
And like go and eat somewhere, and everyone's like, "Where the fuck did this dude come from?" He just came out of every once in a while. He would just show up in town,
right?
And they were like, "Who is this dude?"
Right.
Like, he's just the weirdest dude we've ever seen,
right?
And he just shows up like every 4 months, just out of the nowhere. And he just comes in like he owns the planet. You know? So he's like getting eggs and bacon. You know, like, whoa, where'd you come from?
But you guys weren't allowed to watch a lot of
all that stuff.
The old stuff, because it was so horrible.
Well, because he looked so bad.
Yeah, because he looked like a psycho.
He looked like a nut.
And
but
all
some
the
of
things.
films, they were terrible.
I know, but we never could see them. We only and the ones we did see were already retouched and fixed before we got them to do the real retouching.
I mean,
but they would clean them up, or they would.
We stand tall.